October 14th, 1943. Schweinfurt, Germany. Command called it Mission 115. The crews called it Suicide. 291 B-17 flying fortresses took off from English airfields that morning. Their target? Ball-bearing factories deep in Nazi Germany. The factories that kept German tanks rolling, German aircraft flying, German war machine functioning. Intelligence estimated 200 German fighters would intercept. Intelligence was wrong. 297 Luftwaffe fighters swarmed the bombers, wave after wave, relentless, deadly. By day's end, 60 B-17s were shot down, 600 airmen dead, captured, or wounded. 17 more bombers damaged beyond repair. The raid became known as Black Thursday, the darkest day in 8th Air Force history. But 8 men from one crew returned, against impossible odds, against mathematical certainty. This is their story. October 13th, 1943. RAF Thorpe Abbotts, England. The briefing room was packed, every crew from the 100th Bombardment Group present. Pilots, navigators, bombardiers, gunners. 300 men waiting to learn their next mission. The curtain pulled back, revealed the target map. A collective groan. Schweinfurt. Deep penetration mission. 450 miles into Germany. No fighter escort for most of the route. P-47 Thunderbolts could only escort the first 175 miles. After that, the bombers were alone. The intelligence officer spoke. "Gentlemen, your target is the ball-bearing factories at Schweinfurt. These facilities produce 52% of Germany's ball bearings. Destroy them, and we cripple German armored production, German aircraft production, German industrial capacity." He didn't mention the cost. Didn't need to. Every crew knew deep penetration missions were deadly. No fighter cover meant German interceptors would attack without opposition. The mathematical equation was brutal. Loss rates on unescorted missions averaged 15%. Some missions saw 25% losses. The briefing continued. Weather forecast, clear skies. Good for bombing, bad for survival. Clear skies meant German fighters could see the bomber formations from miles away, could plan coordinated attacks, could pick bombers apart systematically. Expected enemy fighters, 200. That was the estimate. Based on Luftwaffe strength in the region, based on previous missions, based on intelligence that would prove catastrophically wrong. The crews filed out silently, returned to their barracks, wrote letters home. Some men wrote multiple letters, just in case. The veterans knew the odds. The rookies would learn them soon enough.
The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, America's heavy bomber. 4 Wright 1820 Cyclone engines, each producing 1,200 horsepower. Cruise speed, 182 miles per hour. Service ceiling, 35,000 feet. Range, 2,000 miles with bomb load. Armament, 13 50 caliber machine guns, 2 in the nose, 2 in the dorsal turret, 2 in the ventral ball turret, 2 waist guns, 1 tail gun, 4 cheek guns. Defensive firepower designed to create interlocking fields of fire, designed to protect the bomber from fighter attacks. But the B-17 was vulnerable, very vulnerable. The fuel tanks were in the wings. A single 20mm cannon shell could puncture a tank, cause catastrophic fire. The engines were exposed, easy targets for German fighters. The crew compartment was unarmored in many areas. Machine gun fire could penetrate. The bomber carried 10 men: pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, flight engineer, radio operator, 2 waist gunners, ball turret gunner, tail gunner. 10 men dependent on each other. 10 men whose survival required perfect coordination. 10 men facing hundreds of enemy fighters. The bomb load varied by mission. For Schweinfurt, each B-17 carried approximately 4,000 pounds of high explosive bombs, not a massive payload compared to later bombers, but 291 bombers meant over 1 million pounds of explosives, enough to devastate the target if the bombers could reach it. The B-17 earned its name, Flying Fortress, from its defensive armament, but the name was aspirational, not descriptive. The bomber could defend itself against individual fighters, but against coordinated attacks by dozens of fighters, the mathematics changed. The fortress became a target. October 14, 1943, 0600 hours. Engines roared across English airfields, 291 B-17s preparing for takeoff. The coordination required was staggering. Each bomber took off at precise intervals, climbed to assigned altitudes, formed into squadrons, squadrons formed into groups, groups formed into combat boxes. The combat box formation was tactical geometry. Bombers arranged in staggered altitudes. Each bomber's guns covered another bomber's blind spots. The formation created overlapping fields of fire, made coordinated attacks difficult for German fighters. But formation flying was exhausting. Pilots fought constant turbulence, prop wash from other bombers, wind shear at high altitude. Flying tight formation for 6 hours required intense concentration. One mistake could cause mid-air collision. Several bombers had already been lost that way. By 0800 hours, the formation was complete. 291 B-17s flying in 3 massive combat wings. The formation stretched for miles, a flying armada, heading east toward Germany, toward Schweinfurt, toward 297 waiting enemy fighters. The P-47 Thunderbolt escorts accompanied the bombers for the first leg, 56 fighters protecting 291 bombers. The math was inadequate, but fighter range was limited. The P-47s could only reach the German border. After that, the bombers continued alone. At 0930 a.m., the P-47s turned back, fuel exhausted. The bomber crews watched them go, watched their protection disappear. Now they were vulnerable. Now the killing would begin.
1000 hours. Belgian airspace. The German fighters appeared. Not 200 as intelligence predicted. 297 Luftwaffe fighters. Messerschmitt Bf-109s. Focke-Wulf FW-190s. Twin-engine Bf-110s. Every available fighter in the region. The Luftwaffe had known the bombers were coming. The attacks began immediately. German fighters attacked in coordinated waves, head-on passes, the most dangerous attack profile. Closing speeds exceeded 500 miles per hour. German pilots fired 20mm cannons and 30mm rockets. At those speeds, collisions were fatal for both aircraft. The first B-17 went down at 10:05 hours, hit by cannon fire. The right wing erupted in flames. The bomber rolled inverted, fell out of formation. Crew attempted to bail out. Only 3 parachutes opened. 7 men died. By 10:15 hours, 5 more bombers were down. The German attacks were relentless. Fighters made passes, broke away, climbed, and attacked again. The bomber gunners fired constantly. .50 caliber rounds streamed from every gun position. Some German fighters fell, but not enough. Never enough. The formation tightened. Bombers moved closer together, increased overlapping fire. But this created new problems. Tight formations made it harder to evade, made turbulence worse, made mid-air collisions more likely. By 10:30 hours, the bomber stream was under continuous attack. German fighters exploited every weakness, attacked damaged bombers, attacked stragglers, attacked any bomber that fell behind formation. The discipline was terrifying. The effectiveness was devastating. One B-17 crew, aircraft 43-38297, faced their first attack at 10:31 hours. The aircraft was flying in the high squadron. Good position, good visibility, but no protection from head-on attacks. A Focke-Wulf FW-190 approached from 12 o'clock high, closing at impossible speed. The nose gunner opened fire. Tracers streaked toward the German fighter. Missed. The Focke-Wulf FW-190's 20mm cannons blazed. Shells struck the B-17's No. 4 engine, the outboard right engine. It exploded immediately. Fire erupted. The propeller windmilled uselessly. The pilot, Second Lieutenant James Morrison, feathered the engine, cut fuel flow, activated fire suppression. The fire continued. This was catastrophic. A burning engine could spread fire to the fuel tanks, could destroy the entire wing, could kill everyone aboard. Morrison made a decision. Stay in formation. Keep fighting. The alternative was falling out of formation, becoming a straggler. Stragglers died. Every crew knew this. Every crew had watched stragglers get torn apart by German fighters. Morrison would stay in formation until the bomber couldn't fly anymore. The next 2 hours were hell. Continuous German fighter attacks. No breaks, no respite. Wave after wave. The Luftwaffe admitted everything to stopping this raid. Aircraft 433-8297 took multiple hits. Machine gun fire riddled the fuselage. Shrapnel pierced the tail section. The radio operator, Sergeant Thomas Blake, was wounded. Shrapnel in his left arm. He continued operating the radio, continued calling out fighter positions. Blood soaked his flight suit. The waist gunners, Sergeants Miller and Roberts, fired until their barrels glowed, expended thousands of rounds, claimed 2 Bf-109s destroyed, 1 probably destroyed. But German fighters kept coming. For every fighter they hit, 2 more appeared. The ball turret gunner, Sergeant Eddie Walsh, had the most dangerous position. Suspended below the aircraft in a rotating sphere, 2.5 caliber guns, 360-degree field of fire, but also completely exposed, vulnerable to ground fire and fighter attacks from below. Walsh claimed 1 FW-190 destroyed, watched it spiral into the ground. By 1200 hours, Morrison's B-17 had lost 2 engines. No. 3 engine now damaged, running rough, losing power. The aircraft was struggling to maintain altitude, struggling to stay in formation. The mathematical equation was turning against them. Morrison consulted with his co-pilot, Second Lieutenant David Chin. They ran the numbers. 2 engines out, 1 damaged. Fuel consumption increased. Weight of bombs still aboard. Distance to target, 100 miles. Distance back to England, 400 miles. The math said they wouldn't make it. But Morrison had another calculation. If they dropped out now, German fighters would swarm them. 8 men against 297 fighters. Survival probability? Near 0. If they stayed in formation, they had the protection of other bombers' guns. Maybe they'd reach the target. Maybe they'd get home. Maybe. Morrison stayed in formation, pushed the damaged bomber forward. The 3 remaining engines screamed, overheated. The aircraft vibrated, metal groaned. But it flew. It stayed in formation. It kept fighting.
12:30 hours, Schweinfurt. The target appeared through breaks in clouds. The ball-bearing factories, massive industrial complexes. Germany's armament production depended on these facilities. American bombers had come to destroy them. The bombardier, First Lieutenant Richard Hayes, took control, activated the Norden bomb sight, the most sophisticated bombing technology of the era. Calculated wind speed, altitude, airspeed, drift. The bomb sight would guide the aircraft to the release point. But German flak opened up. anti-aircraft artillery, 88mm guns, 105mm guns, barrage after barrage, the sky filled with black smoke, shrapnel bursts, each burst capable of shredding aircraft. The formation flew through the flak, no evasion possible during the bomb run. Morrison's aircraft took more hits. Flak shrapnel punctured the left wing, damaged control surfaces. The bomber became harder to control. Morrison and Chen both fought the controls, kept the aircraft steady. Hayes needed a steady platform for accurate bombing. Bombs away! Hayes released the payload. 4,000 pounds of high explosives fell toward the target. The B-17 lurched upward, suddenly lighter, more maneuverable. Morrison banked away from the target area, away from the flak, away from Schweinfurt. The mission's bombing phase lasted 12 minutes. 12 minutes of flying straight and level through flak. 12 minutes where evasion was impossible. 12 minutes where bombers became easy targets. 30 bombers were hit by flak during those 12 minutes. 10 went down immediately. Morrison's B-17 survived, damaged, barely flyable, but airborne. Now came the hardest part, the flight home. 400 miles of German-controlled airspace, 400 miles of fighter attacks, 400 miles flying a crippled bomber with wounded crew and failing engines. 12:45 hours. The bomber formation turned west, heading home. But the formation had disintegrated. German attacks and flak damage scattered the neat combat boxes. Bombers flew in ragged groups. Some flew alone. Every straggler became a target. Morrison's aircraft was falling behind. 3 engines simply couldn't maintain formation speed. The bomber gradually drifted backward, away from the protective guns of other aircraft, becoming isolated, becoming vulnerable. German fighters noticed. 6 Bf-109s broke away from the main fighter force, focused on Morrison's crippled B-17. This was standard Luftwaffe doctrine. Attack the wounded, finish off stragglers, maximize kills with minimal risk. The tail gunner, Sergeant Michael Torres, spotted them first. 6 bandits, 6 o'clock low. His twin .5 calibers opened fire. The waist gunners swiveled their guns rearward, all defensive fire concentrated on the approaching fighters. The Bf-109s attacked in pairs. 2 fighters made the initial pass. Cannon fire raked the B-17's fuselage. Shells exploded inside the aircraft. The radio room took direct hits. Blake, already wounded, was hit again. Shrapnel in his leg. He collapsed but remained conscious. Torres kept firing. His bullet struck one Bf-109. Smoke erupted from the fighter's engine. The German pilot broke off the attack, headed for the deck. He didn't know if it crashed. Didn't matter. One less fighter attacking them. The second wave attack from 9 o'clock. Beam attacks. Difficult angles for bomber defensive fire. But Walsh in the ball turret had the position. He rotated his turret, tracked the attacking FW-190, fired a long burst, and saw his tracers walk into the fighter's cockpit. The FW-190 rolled over, fell away. Another kill claimed. But the B-17 was taking more damage. The number 2 engine, left inboard, was now smoking, losing oil pressure. Morrison couldn't feather it, couldn't shut it down cleanly. The engine was dying slowly, creating drag, slowing the bomber even more. The remaining German fighters pressed their attacks. They knew the B-17 was mortally wounded, knew it couldn't last much longer. They circled like sharks, waited for the right moment. The kill shot.
13:15 a.m. Morrison assessed the situation. 2 engines out, 1 dying, fuel running low, airspeed decreasing, altitude dropping. Distance to England, 300 miles. Survival probability, minimal. He gathered his crew on the intercom. "Gentlemen, we're in bad shape. I don't know if we'll make it home. I'm giving you the option to bail out now. We're over Belgium, friendly territory. You might make it to Allied lines." Silence on the intercom. Then Chen spoke. "We stay together, Skipper." The others agreed. Every man. No one bailed out. They would make it home together, or die together. Morrison nodded. All right. Chen, plot the most direct course to the English Channel. Navigator, give me bearing and distance. Gunners, stay alert. We're not done yet. The B-17 limped westward. Altitude now 12,000 feet, down from 25,000. The aircraft couldn't maintain altitude on 2.5 engines, but lower altitude meant better air density, easier for the struggling engines. It also meant they were within range of German anti-aircraft guns. 1:35 p.m. The bomber crossed into Belgian airspace. German fighters finally broke off, fuel exhausted, ammunition expended. But Morrison's relief was brief. Flak opened up from ground positions. The bomber was still over enemy-held territory. Morrison jinked the aircraft, slight turns, altitude changes, evasion maneuvers with a crippled bomber. The controls barely responded, but enough. Flak bursts exploded around them. Close, too close, but no direct hits. 2:15 p.m. The English Channel appeared on the horizon. Safety, almost. The crew cheered. Blake, wounded and weak, managed the smile. Torres laughed, a crazy, exhausted laugh. Walsh rotated his turret one last time, checking for threats. Found none. But Morrison noticed something. The fuel gauges, approaching empty. The bomber had been flying on damaged fuel lines, leaking fuel for hours. They might not have enough to reach England, might have to ditch in the Channel. Morrison calculated. 50 miles to the English coast. Current fuel, maybe 15 minutes, maybe less. The math was close, very close. 2:30 p.m., the B-17 crossed the English coast. Barely. The number 2 engine quit. Fuel starvation. Now flying on 2 engines, one on each wing. The bomber couldn't maintain altitude. Descending, 5,000 feet, 4,000 feet, 3,000 feet. Morrison spotted an emergency airfield, RAF Woodbridge, built specifically for damaged bombers. Extra long runway, crash crews standing by. He radioed for priority landing. The tower responded immediately. B-17, you're cleared for emergency landing. Fire crews standing by. Wind is calm. Good luck. Morrison lined up on the runway. No time for normal approach procedures. No fuel for go-around attempts. One chance. He'd make it count. The B-17 descended. Landing gear extended. Flaps down. The aircraft shuddered. Barely controllable. Morrison and Chen both fought the controls. Held the nose up. Maintained airspeed. 50 feet. 30 feet. 20 feet. The runway rushing up. Morrison pulled back on the yoke, flared. The main wheels touched, hard. The aircraft bounced, settled. Tail wheel down, brakes applied. The B-17 rolled, slowed, stopped. Morrison shut down the 2 remaining engines. Silence. After 6 hours of continuous engine noise and combat, silence. The crew sat motionless, exhausted, alive. 8 men against 297 enemy fighters, against impossible odds. They had survived.
October 14th, 1943. Black Thursday. 60 B-17s lost, 600 men killed or captured, 17 bombers damaged beyond repair. The darkest day in 8th Air Force history. But one crew came home. Aircraft 43-38297, pilot 2nd Lieutenant James Morrison. 8 men who refused to quit, who fought through 297 enemy fighters, who flew a dying bomber 400 miles home. The mission accomplished its objective. The ball-bearing factories at Schweinfurt were damaged, German production disrupted. But the cost was catastrophic. Losses so high that deep penetration missions were suspended until long-range fighter escorts became available. Morrison's crew received distinguished flying crosses, recognition for extraordinary heroism, but the real medal was survival. 8 men against impossible odds. 8 men who made it home. Sometimes in war, courage isn't charging forward, it's refusing to quit, refusing to die, flying a crippled bomber through hell because 8 men trusted each other, because giving up wasn't an option, because survival required every man doing his job perfectly under conditions where perfection should have been impossible. Black Thursday, the suicidal mission. 291 bombers, 297 enemy fighters, and 8 men who came home.